My favorite YouTuber for like productivity, business, lifestyle, she said something that really stuck with me. She said, as content creators, we should actually really and truly be willing to film the journey. So like, you know, whenever we film what we film, not just filming the successes, the outcomes, the wins, but also the losses, like the parts of your story that include the highs and lows, the beginning stages, the failures, like all of that. Those are the parts that people really and truly actually need to see, you know? Welcome to the side of YouTube where transparency is in full effect. If you're new, my name's Kai, and I just wanted to come on here and talk about everyone's favorite word, adulting. Yay. I've been off YouTube now for almost a year. I just looked before starting to record. Like, I just checked my videos and I haven't recorded a video for like 10 months. It feels crazy when I think about it. However, adulting, y'all, when I say like it hit me hard, it hit me hard. But I've been feeling like I should share about it, you know, kind of like I said in the beginning video, mainly just because I know I'm not the only one, you know. So this is a safe space. I kind of wanted to create that. Let me know if y'all can relate to feeling unprepared. Like, I feel like there are so many things that, you know, we aren't taught. And for the most part, I'm thankful for my generation because this is being talked about more and more on social media. But there are just so many things that we aren't prepared for, that no one tells us, that, you know, we should know, like, and then we end up having to make mistakes or do things that we can't come back from, or just struggle. Even if you're successful, a lot of us have to figure it out on our own. So yeah, like I said, this is a safe space, and I kind of wanted to just come on here and give people something to relate to, but also share some things that actually have been helpful for me, you know. And I feel like these are things that I kind of, you know, can apply to everybody, in that even if they don't get you to where you want to be, they can just help you along the way. Just to touch on like a few things that I know others can relate to, there are things I feel like in every sphere, right, like that would be helpful if we just had some insight on, right? So if you're adulting, you know what I'm talking about. It could be finances, it could be jobs and career paths, it could be relationships, obviously. Those are all things, sometimes you just find yourself trying to tackle all those at once, or you find yourself going through something and you're like, man, after the fact, you're like, I wish I would have known, you know? For me personally, I have been I have been out of like an official job since like August of 2022. I got into sales right after college. No one told me that I was gonna have a horrible time. They make it seem so grand, you know, when they're selling these positions to you. Yeah, I'm sick, so if you see me rubbing my nose, just know I'm sick, and it's like 0 degrees here. So I worked my sales job from May until August, right out of graduation, until the end of the summer. And y'all, when I tell you I couldn't do it anymore, if you guys know anything about sales, you know the culture can be just demanding, but also very toxic, like what I would call fake positive. You know, they make it seem like they want you to succeed, when in reality, they might, but it's usually just about their numbers. Yeah, I was so exhausted because of the nature of the job, like all the mental energy that it takes to put up this, you know, attitude, but then also just the workload. Like, I was so mentally exhausted, and then I found myself without a job, and right now I'm in my apartment. I have an apartment downtown where I live, and it would have been so helpful just to be able to foresee, you know, not that, you know, we can always stop, you know, things before they go wrong. But I do feel like, man, I wish I just would have known, you know, I wish I would have known that this job was gonna go that way, or even had even more of, you know, the slightest inkling than I did have. That just would have been helpful. I found myself without a job, and I have been since then, since August. Now I have had my own hustles, like I mentioned here on my channel before. Shout out to you if you're a returning watcher, subscriber. I do nails, and I still do, not as much as I used to, but that was like my primary like focus once I quit my job. I was like, you know what, skip this 9 to 5. I'm about to just make my business work. And I knew that it wouldn't be easy, but it wasn't easy. Like, I knew, that it wasn't just a walk in the park. It's, I wasn't a fool. I wasn't like, oh, I'll just make my own business. Like, I had a plan, I had goals, but they were so hard to stick to. And that's obviously, there's a lot I can go into all the little details about how. But I ended up being in a place where I found myself not financially stable. And if you know anything about business, that alone can make your business just tank. So not only was I struggling to pay my bills, but I was struggling to keep up with my inventory, right? Like all the things that I needed to keep business running, which was really hard. I feel like I'm still kind of coming up out of that and still just like processing, like, okay, why didn't this work? Or what could I have done? What should I have done? And moving forward, what will I do? Now I'm in a place where I still do nails, like I said, and I also have another hustle going for me. But I feel like I'm on a path to kind of slowly getting on my feet, and it's gradual, but very, very slow. Nonetheless, you stack that on top of just the weight of kind of being in survival mode all the time. That alone can just make it so hard for you to do daily tasks. Like, I found myself knowing that there could be things that I should do to help my business, but it felt very hard to bring myself to do it. Thinking about, oh, but I don't have this. Oh, I don't have enough money to do this. Or, oh, this needs to get done. I have this bill that needs to be paid. I have this bill that needs to be paid. That alone can bear such a heavy weight that you don't really have time to think about the most possible or likely way to succeed, if that makes sense. That's why so many people who kind of are put in situations where they don't have the best resources, they're the ones who are less likely to succeed, unfortunately, just because you work with what you're given. And a lot of times when you're not given much, if you have to just figure it out all on your own, it's just going to be so much harder for you mentally, physically, almost every way. That's my story kind of about just like my job and career. I do want to add in there too, like, I'm super thankful that I know probably if you're watching this video, you may or may not be close to my age range, but I'm thankful that I live in a generation where mental health matters. And so issues that aren't directly related to just like our day-to-day activity, but just underlying things that could be stopping us from being successful, which is like depression and mental health and anxiety. It's kind of similar to me talking about being in survival mode, because that's really what it is. That's really what it is. When you're always thinking about what you're gonna eat or how you're gonna get the bills paid, it's hard to think about what's your next business move. And so therefore I do just want to take a second even to acknowledge, outside of job stuff, there's just the weight of like, when you're trying to start out life and you have trauma that you're piecing through and you have issues already with depression and anxiety. It's like, I don't know if you guys have. If you have, that's amazing, but I didn't get no talk or even have any idea about where to go to for learning how to adult and how to do things through hardship, mental hardship, exhaustion, depression, like all of that stuff. I've had my own journey, I feel like, with mental health. I'm thankful, and I don't want to make my case seem worse than it is. I take those things very seriously. I know people that, have been clinically diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and that hasn't been me. And so, yeah, I feel like for the most part, I have made it through, but just barely. So because of all the things going on in my life, job stuff, family stuff is a big one. And just, other kind of weights, other things that kind of just bring you down. I've found myself for the last several months struggling. So here we are. I feel like I'm in a better place in terms of mentally, financially getting there, you know what I'm saying? And I definitely am in a good place when it comes to relationships, and I'm forever thankful for that. That kind of leads me into what I want to share with you guys. I'm going to segue into like, these are some things that have helped me as a 22-year-old. That's another thing. Hey, if you're new and you didn't know, I'm 22. As a 22-year-old in a city that, she kind of came to on her own, just figured it out. These are some things that have probably helped me the most, and that if you're either just starting out younger than me or you're older, adulting is a forever thing. So, you're only a kid for so long, but you're adulting for the rest of your life. So I hope this can be helpful throughout this whole journey, like throughout these several months, but even beforehand. Community, that's the number one thing. And if you are also a returning subscriber, you know that I am a woman of faith. So community, and specifically like Christian community or community that's uplifting, you know what I'm saying? They have been like a rock. Like when I say a rock, like I can't tell you, you know, just how thankful I am for the people who have helped me in multiple different ways, whether that's housing, whether that's money, whether that's you know, just food. Like it could be little things like giving me gas money to get somewhere, or picking me up to make it somewhere, or advice or companionship, or just having someone to call up and vent. Like I can't even begin to count the list of things that, you know, I've had help to do, and I'm super thankful for that, because I have had issues with my family. I know how it feels to feel like, you know, you're not being supported. I've had issues with friends and family, as we all have. And so finding community, which in itself can be hard, that's a whole nother topic, but trying to find community that is genuinely supportive, genuinely helpful, in a sense that, you know, they're not there to solve all your problems. That's obviously not what I'm saying. But people who, you know, that you can rely on, you know what I'm saying, and vice versa. Like it's a give and take. Finding those people who support you, who love you truly and genuinely, that can be the difference, honestly, between you making it to see, you know, better days and you giving up, to be quite honest, to be raw and truthful. You can't put a price on good people and friendship. That's something that I've learned to its fullest extent. The second thing, this is where I feel like if it were me, I might click off the video. The second thing I want to mention, it is something that's helpful. It's by no means something that I'm perfect with, but it's something that we all dread. It's probably one of the biggest parts of adulting that makes you just want to just bleh. Budgeting. Yes, the dreaded word, the dreaded thing. Budgeting, y'all. I'm saying this because, again, some of you may have experienced, like, it's so necessary. I feel like budgeting is another thing that most of us aren't taught. You know, some of us are. And sorry, I don't want to generalize. If you are, that's amazing. I guess just from what I glean, and, you know, like a lot of people that I see my age and close to my age, even give or take 10 plus or minus years, still struggle with budgeting and how to handle money, you know, even if they did have like parental guidance. It's one of those things that I feel like you just have to continue to learn. But when you don't have anyone to kind of really show you the ropes to begin with, man, you struggle. And I mean, you can struggle hard. If you know what I'm talking about, like I've actually had some like severe pitfalls because of like not making the best money decisions. Like talk about quitting a job and having an expensive downtown apartment, or talk about having credit that you can't afford to pay. You know, talk about, you know, having bill collectors like reporting you to collection agencies. Like I'm spilling all my business, but again, transparency. I feel like those are things, you know, it's just like sometimes, yes, we all have to fall in order to learn, you know, even if we do have help, sometimes we don't listen. But again, I feel like a good majority of us just don't know, you know, we don't just grow up knowing how to handle money, how finances work, how these financial institutions work, you know. So to budgeting, like figuring out something that works for you when it comes to like how are you making income and how are you distributing that just at the basics, like, and of course all your bills. So distributing that between priorities, things that need to get paid, and the things that you want, like that is like golden in your adult life, and it can either make or break you. Some people are paying for bad budget mistakes that happened 10, 20, 30 years ago. So these are things that I feel like, if not, you didn't know, just like to start seeking out can be the difference between you having such an easier adulthood, you know. The last thing is kind of similar to something that I mentioned already. It's just faith and purpose. Now, I don't mean to sound cliche. I don't mean to come on here and just be like,
you have to know your purpose. Like you have to be certain about what your calling is in life, and you have to know what you want to do, and you have to have your goals all together and
That's not what I mean. But I do feel like everyone should be on a journey of trying to figure out basically what they want out of life. Like if you're not, then you're kind of just living and you're not going anywhere. That's like driving and you haven't decided your destination. Like I think it's important for you to always be kind of inwardly reflecting about, why am I doing what I'm doing? You know what I'm saying? If not, then you'll find yourself doing things that lead to nothing, again, driving, and it leads to the middle of nowhere. Or not driving, not doing something, and wondering why you aren't in a place that's comfortable, you know, or a variety of outcomes. But nevertheless, I feel like faith and purpose and kind of those deeper underlying motivations are so important. And that so many of us, even as cliche as it might sound, so many of us nowadays get so wrapped up in the surface level things, like, you know, what we have to show, and just, you know, what we're doing on a day-to-day, even like, I'm not bashing it, but just like habits and routines, like, you know, waking up at a certain time or working out. But it's like, well, why are you doing what you're doing? What do you really want out of life, you know? And so again, this is for, I guess, the people who, if that's you, if that's not you, then that's awesome. But yeah, it could just be a helpful reminder to everybody to just be thinking about, hey, what do I feel like my purpose is in doing what I'm doing? And what do I want out of life? What are my goals? You know, what do I feel like is my true dream? Me having faith, I feel like that intertwines a lot, you know, as a believer. It's just like, I want to do things, you know, I want to live my life in a way that's pleasing to God. I want to live my life in a way that's honoring to others and myself. And so in a lot of ways, that's kept me going. Even when I wasn't sure of, you know, my exact movements at that current time, I knew like, hey, okay, if nothing else is for sure, I know that God got me and he wants me to do X, Y, and Z, you know. It's kind of an insight into my life and how I've tried to go about things. Like, that was what, 3 kind of just tidbits that have been helpful for me on this journey. But I'm hoping, again, for this to just kind of become a safe space here on my YouTube. Sharing the journey, sharing the highs and lows. That's something that I'm opening up to more and more as I'm usually more private, I think, on the internet. Which I'm about to make a video on the internet and just my whole opinion on that, which stay tuned. But those are things I feel like that you can take with you at whatever stage in life that you're at. So listen, we're in this together. We all gonna make it. If not anything else you got from this video, I hope you realize that, you know, in a lot of the struggles in whatever sphere of life, finances, relationships, jobs, whatever, in whatever sphere of life you might be struggling with, and learning to operate through life, you know, on your own or whatever, I hope that you glean that you're not alone. Like, I've seen this conversation pop up, and I want to be another person to offer up a safe space and say like, hey, we all struggling. As much as people might want to act like they got it together, a lot of us don't. So yeah, don't believe the hype. Don't feel like you're not where you need to be, especially as 20-somethings, teenagers, or even 30-somethings.